Om Asato Ma Sargamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O Lord, please lead us from unreality to the reality, ignorance to the knowledge, and from death to ignorance. Om, peace, peace, peace. Sorry, suddenly from afternoon I got some bad throat, so kindly bear with my voice. Today we are having a birthday of Swami Dayananda Saraswati, according to the Hindu almanac. He's a great Indian monk, reformer, Advaita Vedantin, the non-dualistic philosopher. Apart from that, he gave the clarion call to go back to Vedas, which is very famous in India. And if you see the background, the time when Swami Dayananda Saraswati took birth in India, it was the time where the Renaissance was in full effect. Now, there's a lot of difference between Indian Renaissance and the Europe Renaissance or the Western Renaissance. In the Indian Renaissance, if you see, for almost 7 to 8 centuries, we were invaded and we were ruled by the Islam rule. So there were a lot of problems from the socio-cultural things. Because of the invasions and political reasons, there were quite few social changes. And there were few changes in the name of religion to protect the human rights, to protect the woman, to protect the temple, to protect the culture. So many unwanted things had creeped in the Hinduism or the Indian culture. Apart from that, a lot of temples were destroyed and Hindus were feeling suffocated in India, unfortunately, all these things. Then when the Mughals rule were almost at the end, then from the Europe, Dutch, French, Portuguese, Britishers or English people, they came in the they came for business, and slowly they started ruling, they started colonizing the India. When the Britishers and when the Westerners they came, then this not only they started trade with us, slowly they infiltrated into our society or into the Indian society, and they started abusing the Indian culture, abusing the religion, and etc. So there was a total reaction in the India from the different angles. One is, of course, political angle. The other was social angle. The third was from knowledge or the education angle. The other is from the religious and spiritual angle. So one side, there was a reaction towards all this. So the India wanted freedom from the foreign invasion or from the colonization. That's the one thing. And second thing, there were two extreme people were having. One side, like hardcore people, like they were saying, whatever is from India and Indian wisdom, that is right and we have to follow to the letter. The other extreme, that they were influenced by Western education, they had been probably visited Europe and other places. They started feeling that India is, oh, it is a backward and Indian philosophy is not very good. Rather, Western philosophy, Western religion, Western etiquettes is best. So we should follow West. So these two polarities were slowly creeping in and people were getting oscillated between these two extreme positions. And before that, as the father of Indian Renaissance movement, Raja Ram Mohan Rai started in the name of socio-political or socio-cultural, socio-religious movement called Brahma Samaj. There he said, we have to take something, best thing from West, and we have to retain few best from India, and we have to probably make a middle path. That was his view. At the same time, he wanted some Indian best ideas, views, and he also clubbed few Western points, Western views, Western ideas, and he started a new movement called Brahma Samaj. That was quite rampant in the eastern part of India, which is Bengal in those days. All the intellectuals, youngsters, they started following the Brahma Samaj. Then afterwards, Arya Samaj came, Prarthana Samaj came, Theosophical Society came, Ramakrishna Merchant Mission came. Like this, there are a couple of organizations came into effect and they started guiding the Indian folk or Indian intellect, Indian spirituality. So, in the part of literature, philosophy, politics, science, arts, education, social practices, there were great changes and there were great challenges indeed. So this is very quite interesting. So there was a great churning over. Churning was happening actually. Many times when we exposed to the new ideas, so many times our own the existing ideas when are challenged, there will be uproar in our own mind. So whether whatever I was following till now, whatever I was believing myself till now, whether is it true or the new idea which I have been heard today, is it true or which to follow, which to leave, or how much to follow, how much to leave. This type of churning, it happens in individual. Same thing was happening in India also. For example, even in the Europe, for example, 5th or 6th century, when the Christianity started spreading in the different parts of Europe, there was a constant collision between though they say the pagan religion and Christianity, there was a conflict. So there also, if you see in the during Vikings period and other places, there were people who were holding on to pagan religion and customs. It is right, they were saying. There was other people also who were saying that Christianity is the best and the beliefs and the philosophy is best. We have to follow. In between, the people were oscillating between these two things. So same thing we can see in India between the Indian values and the Western values or the outlook. There was a constant drift or constant oscillation was happening. So in these challenging circumstances, at different angles, political angle, religious angle, spiritual angle, cultural angle, or social angle, there Raja Ram Mohan Roy came, then Arya Samaj founder, that is Dayananda Saraswati, he took birth. Just in after 6 years, Sri Ramakrishna took, he born, and there are Ani Besant came, for example. So Bal Gangadhar Tilak followed, Aurobindo followed. So many great people came and they revived the Indian Renaissance and they built the present modern India, we can say. So the India started there was a revolution inside and outside in India. That's interesting actually. Outside, what I mean? So they went against the foreign invasion, foreign rule. And also in the India inside, they started challenging the social systems, some of the social practices, religious practices, philosophies, and their own forefathers' wisdom. So inside and outside, the revolution was happening in India. Now, Swami Dayananda Saraswati was such a great monk and reformer, and he gave a clarion call, as I said, go back to Vedas. Okay, there are some problems, there are some issues or challenges in our country. For that, the best solution is what? Our age-old wisdom. All our Indian culture, Indian civilization is resting upon, which is called in Vedas. Vedas means what? It is wisdom. So Vedas comes from the root word called Vid. Vid means to know or the knowledge. So Vedas means it is not just books or it is a book. It is a treasure house of wisdom. So go to the Vedas and you get everything from there. So he gave a clarion call, go back to the Vedas and you get all the things. And it simply didn't give a clarion call. If we read his life, we will understand how much for almost 30 years he dedicated his life completely to study Sanskrit language, Sanskrit grammar, Vedas, then the Vedangas, 6 limbs of Vedas, and philosophies, yoga, all. Not only he learned, he also practiced. So after having a mastery over the Sanskrit and the Indian wisdom, like Veda, Upanishads and other things, he gave a clarion call, go back to Vedas. Now, interestingly, if you see, one side Sri Ramakrishna is born in the east side of the India, and here in the west part of the India, just opposite, the Dayananda Saraswati took birth in the present day Gujarat, in a traditional Brahmin religious family. So their surname is called Trivedi or Tiwari. Tiwari is nothing but the Trivedi. Trivedi means one who has mastered in 3 Vedas actually. Now, Dvivedi, for an example, there may be surname called Dvivedi. Dvivedi means one who has mastered in two Vedas. So Chaturvedi is there. Chatur means one who has mastered in 4 Vedas. Now it is only surname. So now the present some people might have got the surnames like Dvivedi, Trivedi, Chaturvedi. They might not know a single statement from Vedas. But their forefather, someone, they had the mastery over the Vedas. And he also has been born in the traditional Brahmin family, which is the surname called Trivedi. means their forefathers had a mastery over the three Vedas. So his pre-monastic name is Mula Shankar Tiwari or Trivedi. So Mula Shankar Tiwari or Trivedi itself shows that one was their forefathers were good at Vedas, and not only the Shankar also resembles that they used to follow the Shaiva tradition. 12th February 1824, he was the eldest son for the parents. So his father name was, I think, Amba Shankar Trivedi, and mother was Yashoda Bai. And afterwards, he had two younger brothers and two younger sisters. And this Amba Shankar, he was not again an ordinary man. He was well versed in Sanskrit, well versed in scriptures, and he was very hardcore traditionalist. He used to follow early morning, getting up, doing Sandhya Vandana, and whatever the practices was laid down by his family traditions or by the culture, by the forefathers, he used to follow to the letter. And being the traditional Pandit, used to do a lot of fastings, which was encouraged by forefathers. And he was very strict also, and he used to ask the family people also to follow. And at the same time, he belongs to a aristocratic family. So, for an example, he was like a tax collector from a couple of villages. And he had a huge farmland, so he had a good amount of money, and he had his own army, small army, to take care of the probably county, we can say, or county, or in those times it is called taluks, used to look after. So he was a wealthy person. He was aristocratic family. He belongs to aristocratic family, Amba Shankar. At the age of 5 itself, he started learning this. Swami Dayananda Saraswati, he was introduced at the age of 5 for Sanskrit studies. Unlike his friends, in no time he used to master the book after book. His teachers were dumbfounded. At the age of 8th year, he was, as a tradition, he was invested into sacred thermony. So according to the Shastras, that is Smriti Granthas, not according to the Vedas, Smriti Granthas, the general accepted tradition, so it is the Brahmins has to be invested sacred thread at the age of 12. The Kshatriyas, that is from like warrior clan, they were supposed to be invested into sacred thread at the age of 12, and the Vaishyas, that is the business people, business class people, they were supposed to be invested thread at the age of 16. So since he belongs to that Brahmin clan or family, he was invested the sacred thread at the age of 8. So once he got the sacred ceremony, he started doing Sandhya Vandana and doing Gayatri Japa daily and worship, and started learning Vedas and etc. And at the age of probably 11 years, imagine, at the age of 11, because though he belongs to Samaveda, interestingly, whole Yajurveda was by heart for him. At the age of 11, he knew entirely, completely every letter, every line, or every hymn or a mantra of the Yajurveda. And he also had studied, and he had a by heart of few other Vedas, and he also had a good command over Sanskrit and Sanskrit grammar at the age of 14. And he was, he was a very studious student, and used to spend a lot of time in studies, because he believed in books are our real friends. So he used to spend a lot of time in studies. So maybe at the age of 12, I think 12 or 13, so he was asked to do fasting on the Shivratri day. Probably he was not very well that day, unfortunately. So his mother pleaded that, Amba Shankar, if my son is not well today, so better you should give him option that he should not fast and he should not keep awake himself on the Shivratri day whole night. And we are observing Shivratri next week. But his father was very strict. He said nothing happens. He has to follow the entire day, and he has to maintain his time in worship in the whole night along with me in the temple. So he was forced to do fasting and to keep awake himself in the whole night. Then he followed his father's instructions, and the late evening, he followed his father to the temple which was outside of the village. And the first prahara, we say, the first part of the puja, it was a large gathering. Everyone were chanting songs and the hymns and the Vedic hymns and all. There were a lot of worships were going, Abhishekam, sacred bath for Lord Shiva. First prahara, first part of the puja got over. Second part started slowly. Some people started yawning here and there. Some of them, they went in the nook and corner and they started settling down, slowly dozing off. The third prahara is very difficult, so which is like between 1 and 3 p.m. a.m. So that's the time most of them, they get settled or they sleep away, most of the people. So same thing happened. The third prahara, puja over, and people slowly they started dozing off. And even this Amba Shankar Tiwari, who was very strict, unfortunately or fortunately, he also dozed off. When the officer himself dozed off, all other people felt that they have got a license, and slowly they also started sleeping down. Now, interestingly, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, if he takes something seriously, he used to do it to its letter. So he was asked by his father to, do fasting and also keep awake himself. So everyone were sleeping including his father, but he was keeping vigilant and he was observing every incident and everything. And slowly, even the priests also, some corners on the wall, just they leaned down and they were having a small nap. And there was an interesting incident. So almost 60-70% have people have slept, and here and there small bhajans are happening. In the sanctorium, in one of the, from the small corner, a rat came. A rat came, and rat started eating the offerings which was given by the people or the devotees or the priests, which was kept in front of Shivlinga. Rat started eating the food which was offered to Shivlinga. Then Swami Dayananda Saraswati, as a young boy, he was Shankar, he was looking this, he was just seeing that. A thought came in his mind. And though which is not right, but as a small, a young boy, adolescent boy, he got this. Now we worship Lord Shiva as a Lord. He is a caretaker of entire world, including every one of us. And now the rat is eating its own food, which was offered to him. If he's not able to take care of himself, then how can he take care of us? Or how can we worship him as the Lord and who's the caretaker and all? So he got a terrible doubt, and his faith was disturbed, and his faith got upside down. Then he started shaking his father. His father got up and he wanted to avoid, saying that I was sleeping. He gave some excuses or explanation. He asked, "Look, father, you told, and the priest and the pandits were giving some narrations about the Shiva and who is Shiva and etc. I did hear. Yes, but Shiva himself is unable to check from eating the rats of his food. Then how can I accept him as Parameshwara or the Lord?" So, his father was in a fix. He gave some reasons and all, but Shankar Tiwari, he didn't accept, or he couldn't accept for his logical reasoning. And he finally told, kindly convince me, why should I worship, or why should I do the idol worship? Then his father, Amba Shankar Tiwari, he was left with no other option. He came with an explanation saying that, look, Lord Shiva, he always resides in the Kailasa, which is in the tip of the Himalayas. From there, in this Kali Yuga, because we are all so, low-minded, mean-minded people, Shiva cannot appear in front of us physically. As a result, we have taken his as a symbol and we are worshipping Lord Shiva. Some explanation he gave, but unfortunately, Shankar Tiwari, as a Swami Dayananda Saraswati, he couldn't accept this explanation. Then he was terribly disturbed and he said, "Father, please excuse me. I'm not feeling well and I'm terribly disturbed. Please allow me to go to house." Now, Amba Shankar Tiwari was also in little problem because of the questions by his son. He allowed him to go. But he had told him he should not sleep, neither he should sleep nor he should eat. But now, because Shankar Tiwari was really disturbed by this, somehow his faith towards idol worship had disturbed, and it was disturbed. So he went back and he told to his mother, "I am hungry. Can you give something?" Mother was very happy. She fed him with sweets, and he took sweets at 1 or 2 a.m. Just he slept. Then at the 5 or 6 a.m. when his father came, he came to know that he took the sweets and he has broken the fasting and he's sleeping, which was very annoying. And afterwards, he expressed his annoyment. But Shankar Tiwari, he gave a deaf ear, saying that now onwards, I don't have any respect towards the idol worship. That was his view. But it is not so that the contrary example we can see in the life of Ramakrishna very interestingly, without giving any judgmental opinion. Once there was a theft in Dakshineshwar. Mathurnath Vishwas, the owner of the temple, he made a similar comment that oh, we worship him as a Lord. He cannot protect himself, the jewels which was put on him. Then how can he protect us? Then Sri Ramakrishna, who was there next to him, he heard and he made a comment. Look, you have put some jewelry on him, on the Lord, which is very great or which is very costly and which is very dear to you. Never mind. Now, for the Lord Narayana or Lord Vishnu, the goddess of wealth called Lakshmi Devi, she is sitting at his feet and she is pressing his legs. So, few one or two necklace or one or two jewelries, do you think that for Lord it will be very costly or which is meaningful? So stop nonsense. He doesn't give any attention to all these things. This is very precious and valuable to you, not but for him. Then Madhurnath Vishwas understood his foolishness. He asked pardon, apologies, and he continued his faith. So the contrary examples we can see how the same incident can be seen in different angles, I used to say. From that day onwards, his attitude towards idol worship got changed and he started slowly moving away from the idol worship. Then at the age of probably by 14th or 15th year, he had studied Vedas and he had studied Vedangas, Nigantu, which is called dictionary. It was in by heart. Then Purvamimamsa, rituals, and so many things he had done. By 15th year, he was well versed in quite a few Indian scriptures. Now, the death is a question or death is an incident in many of our lives. It changed our attitude. For you see in the Ramana Maharshi's case, he was a young boy, adolescent boy. He came one day from the school probably in one of his, Tamil Nadu in the southern part of India. He went back, probably it was afternoon, mid-afternoon. He was sleeping. Suddenly he had an experience of death. Probably most of us, we get up, we scream, we fight, we might go to depression, we get into some problems. He experienced the death that invoked thinking, very strong thinking. Then who am I? If I'm going to die, okay, now today I'm being spared, but tomorrow or day after or after a few years I'll be dying, then who am I? Will I survive after death? So these are the questions boggled Ramana Maharshi, and that made him to leave the home and earth, and he went to Tiruvannamalai. He went to the cave and he sat and he started meditating and contemplating, searching for truth. Who am I? Who am I? And that's why he became a great person. Same thing we can see in the Swami Advaitananda's case. Because he lost his wife, and that made him to come to spirituality. In the many cases, sometimes people go into wrong direction. They get into drug addiction. They may get into, for example, drinking habits. They can become depressed. They can become negative in their mindset and all. Such people we can see. Some people, they accept and they go further. But few people, they take this as a serious, and there will be a great change in their life. Same thing happened in Dayananda Saraswati or Shankar Tiwari's life. At the age of 16, the eldest sister, he had two sisters, and the eldest sisters, because of cholera, she passed away. And he used to love her so much, and it was a rude shock for the Shankar Tiwari. One side, he was very intellectual, he had studied, he was a studious student and all. So this shook his mind again. This shook his emotions, and he started thinking, then what is death? What is this life and death? Then, so everyone has to face the death. If so, then what is the reality? All these questions started pondering upon him, and he started thinking, what should I do? Interestingly, everyone knew that he used to love his sister so much, but in front of the corpse, in front of the dead body, even he didn't cry. In those days, in India, generally we cry, of course, and mother was crying, father was crying, brother and sisters are crying, relatives have assembled, everyone is crying, and the Shankar Tiwari is sitting simply numb. There is so much pain inside, but he's not expressing. People mistook it, unfortunately, and people started saying that this Shankar Tiwari is a stone-hearted man. Well, he's a studious student, he's an intellectual person, no doubt, but he's a stone-hearted man. His own dearest sister has passed away. Not even a single drop of tear has rolled down on his cheeks. What type of person? Including his parents mistook. They scolded him, they abused him and all. At some point of time, he got up and he went to his room. Then for some time he was disturbed, and afterwards again he started studying more and more intensely to come away from this problem emotional problem which was haunting his mind about the death. So after some time, he was able to recover from that loss, and again he was studious in his studies. After 3 years, at the age of 19, one more very dearest person for his life, which was one of his uncle, he also passed away again from the cholera. So this was again one more death blow on his mind, which made him started feeling indrawn. He decided that I have to dedicate. Then this incident made him to decide that he decided that I will dedicate my life in Babele. Probably ascetic life I will take up, and I will experience what is the truth, and I will attain the immortality. I will never go to the family life. I will never take a common person life. And slowly, he started talking with his parents, with his friends, with the pundits or whomever so scholarly people he meets. He started discussing about the problem of death, and he started asking openly that what is the way to attain moksha? What is the way to attain emancipation? Now you can very clearly you can see even in Sri Ramakrishna's life, at the age of 7 or 8, he lost his father. That made him very indrawn. So he used to go quietly to the burial ground or some, lonely places, and he used to sit and he used to meditate at the age of 7 and 8. He became very serious. He became indrawn, and he started meditating, and he wanted to know what is the truth. The same thing we can see, a similar thing we can see in the life of Sri Ramakrishna because of his father's death, which made him to withdraw his mind. Now he decided very clearly that he wanted to take the ascetic life. And he started questioning about the moksha and mukti, and slowly, he started also expressing his view, his desire that he want to take the life of monasticism. Now, this is the great difference many of us, even in my case, I did understand afterwards later, that when we say that, when the youngsters or whomever, so when we say that we would like to take the monastic life or spiritual life is okay, monastic life, then there will be a lot of reactions in the house. Now, same thing happened in the Shankar Tiwari's house. Their mother, she was so gentle, she was so, loving, and she was so sweet in her behavior. But when she heard that his eldest son, Shankar Tiwari, wants to take the ascetic life, again she became very rough and scolding him and etc. And one side, his father, he was so spiritual, so religious, so cultured, and so traditional, etc., etc. But he was also not ready to accept, or even he didn't accept that his eldest son, Shankar Tiwari, who can be allowed to take the monastic life. So there was a hard debates in the house, and there were for and against all these things. Then for some time he said he wants to get away, and he went to some of the friend's house and he wanted to stay, and he said, please give me some time, I cannot stay in the house because of these hard debates. So time passed, 1 year over, and the parents were trying hard to convince the Shankar Tiwari to get married, because in those days child marriage was common in many places. So at the age of 16 was quite enough to get married, and he was pursued very hard from with their parents and their relatives to be married. And Shankar Tiwari was saying that no, no, no. And somehow he was begging the time every time. And 1 year is over. Then their parents said, now time is enough. Now you have to accept that you have to get married. Then he was trying to find out some excuse. Suddenly, then there was a huge farm land which was little far from their village or a birthhouse. Then he said to his father, look, father, if you don't mind, I will go and stay in my farmhouse. And so his father was very happy because the only workers were there. Because of his administrational work, he was unable to go often to the farmland to look after. So he thought, if because of his son, if he goes there, he can look after the entire farming work under, so he can get more crops, more profit. Then he said, yes, I will allow on one condition, that you should go there and you should look after all the farming work as a superintendent. Initially, Shankar Tiwari laughed at it, but inside he was very clear that I am not going to do this job. He accepted this. Reluctantly he said, okay, let me try. Why? Because for two reasons. One is he can be away from his parents, from his house, so that he will be away from the marriage proposal. That's the one. Second thing, he had learned that one Pandit, one scholar is near to his farmland, so that he can go often and he can learn some scriptures. That was the intention. So with these two reasons, he accepted his father's condition and he went. But unfortunately, he never looked into the farming business or anything. He was just spending his time in solitude, and he went to Pandit and he continued his studies. You see how much he had inquisitiveness and search for knowledge and so much interest in studies. Then in no time, this Amba Shankar Tiwari, that is Shankar Tiwari's father, understood that my son has bluffed me. He was not really wanted to look after the farmland or whatever. Then again started after some time, his parents started, my dear, now this is the right time. Now, okay, you have studied enough, you have learned enough, you have become matured enough, and now you should accept for marriage. Then Shankar Tiwari said no, and now the parents took a very strong stand and said, they started saying, whether you want or not, we want, you have to be married and you have to get married. And marriage proposals were done, and almost it was fixed. In a month or so, there will be marriage. Now he was in a great fix. Now what should I do? And almost like he was in house arrest. Not exactly, but he was like a house arrest. Because the Amba Shankar Tiwari had a lot of workers and even the soldiers and all. So they were constantly looking after, so that this Shankar Tiwari will not go anywhere. Then Shankar Tiwari thought for a long time. He said he had enough debates. He tried enough times to convince their parents and their relatives. And now whoever the friends were supporting, they also said, better your parents, whatever saying it is right. You should get married sometime. Marriage life is a better life. You get married. So now no one was there for him to support. Then either fight or flight. So fight is done. He thought, now fight is over. Only flight is a chance for me. And one night when people were sleeping, so one night he made made a plan. In one late night, he went to the back door and he opened and he ran and he went out. And of course, probably people will be knowing where he has gone. Immediately, his father took some of his people and they went in search of this Shankar Tiwari. And for probably a few miles he had traveled, and nearby there was a huge congregation where a lot of monks and brahmacharis were assembled. That was a fair, basically, jatra like. So there he went and he approached some gurus. He discussed, and they were all impressed by his knowledge, by his scriptural knowledge and all. So he begged, he discussed, and he requested one of the monk, and he was initiated into Brahmacharya Diksha. So he was named as Shuddha Chaitanya. So he was named as Shuddha Chaitanya. Now he was very happy. So at the age of 21, he left and he had received the Brahmacharya vows, Shuddha Chaitanya. He stayed for some time there. So his father was in constant search to find out his son. After a few days, then again he wanted to travel some other places as a wandering monk. While traveling, he met one of the Bairagi, one of the monk. Bairagi means it's a Vaishnava monk. That Vaishnava monk is a distant relative of him or his family. So both of them met each other. Initially, he had some reservations, but then he thought, Shuddha Chaitanya thought, oh, anyhow, he's a monk, he's also an ascetic, he will accept my decision, which we think. And they had a discussion and all. I don't know what is the reason, but unfortunately, this Vaishnava monk said, you should not have taken this life, because you've got a lot of responsibilities, you've got a huge property, and your father is is officer. You were supposed to do all these things. You should not have taken this life. Shuddha Chaitanya said, oh no, I've decided I will be a monk, etc. Then they had a discussions, and after 2-3 days, this Bairagi went other, and this Shuddha Chaitanya also went in search of some gurus. Secretly, this Vairagi or this monk wrote a letter to his father, Amba Shankar Tiwari, that I met your son, he's here, he's in such and such a place, he's traveling in such and such area. If you come, probably you can catch him. But unfortunately, the Shuddha Chaitanya was unaware of, and he was wandering and in searching of right guru for his life and for his understanding. Then immediately near Baroda or Ahmedabad, again there was a great fair, Jatra, where a lot of monks were supposed to meet. And they will have a discussions and sannyas ceremonies will be held like this. So he heard and he went there. And like Paramahamsa Sachidananda, Paramahamsa Krishnananda, so many monks he met, and they had interesting discussions. They were all really amazed and astonished to see the scriptural knowledge or the in-depth of this Shuddha Chaitanya. And obviously, his father came with a band of soldiers. So every nook and corner of that great gathering, they were searching. And one day, after 2, 3 days probably, his father came near Mahadeva temple, being a devotee of Lord Shiva, and he came, and this Shuddha Chaitanya came out from the temple or came outside. Okay, he was just walking there, and they met each other face to face. Now, very well, we can imagine what will happen. So, Ambar Shankar Tiwari's BP was raised, and he caught hold of him, and he scolded him right and left. He abused him right and left. And do you want to kill my wife? Do you want to kill your mother? And so many things he scolded right and left. Unfortunately, with that anger, he tore away even the dress of the Shankar Tiwari, who was wearing probably akar cloth or a yellow cloth. In different traditions, they've got different white. For example, in our tradition, we wear white. In some traditions, they wear yellows. In some traditions, they wear akar cloth. Akar cloth, even as a brahmachari. So his ropes were torn, and his kamandalu was smashed into the ground, and he was forced to wear the normal dress, civilian dress. And again, he was kept in the tent with the soldiers. So then this again, Shuddha Chaitanya is saying whether he can miss anywhere, he can go anywhere, nothing is possible, because every nook and corner he has been surrounded by the people. Now here again, we can see that what is the providence, what is the fate, or what is the God's will. He has caught him now, fine. He could have easily snatched, he could have taken him into the house. He could have, along with his soldiers and all. Why they stayed back in that fair and in the jatra, we don't know. They were there. So 1 or 2 days he was waiting, and he was trying to get out from there. After second day, probably at midnight, somehow slowly, many of the soldiers were dozing off. He saw this is the right time. Simply, he came out from the tent, and like probably in the speed, like athletes, they run in the speed, how much ever is possible, simply started running without giving a stop. Maybe half a mile or 1 mile, he ran, and there was a small temple. And next to the temple, there was a huge peepal tree. Because he was very well aware, in no time, some of the soldiers will get up, and they will understand that I am not there, and they will come in search of me. This fellow is walking and running, and they will come in the horses and all, so easily they can catch. Now he understood this, and he thought this peepal tree is the best place for him to shelter. So he climbed the peepal tree, and in one of the peepal tree, one of the branch, he hid himself. Just he had climbed, and he sat probably 5-10 minutes over, and he had a small relaxation. Immediately he started listening the sound of horses. As he anticipated, a group of horsemen came along with one of the officers. They started searching every nook and corner of the temple and that place to search for the Shuddha Chaitanya. But he was hiding in the peepal tree, and henceforth they were unable to find. Then they also encored the locals or the people who were there, and also the priests and the officers of the temple. None of them had seen him, unfortunately. So everyone said, sorry, we have not seen anyone by that name or with that physique. Then they spent a good amount of time searching everywhere. And finally, since they couldn't find him, so they left. Now, easily he could have come down, but the Shuddha Chaitanya was thinking, if I come down, because people have come to know about me, if some news comes, if some people may give news for my father, or because there can be spies and etc., like the Bairagi did. He didn't have food that previous day for 2 days. Even that day also he doesn't have food or anything. But the whole day, yesterday evening he had climbed, the evening and night, even the next day, whole night, probably he had a small in a bottle, he had a water. So now and then he used to sip some water, and without any food for just the whole day, he stayed in one of the branch in the peepal tree. He stayed when the evening, so almost like all people got retired and there were no people. Slowly he got down from the peepal tree, and he started walking in the different direction. And he came again near Baroda, and he met with a quite few monks, and he started discussing the scriptures and all. Then afterwards, again, he went to different places in searching of gurus. So here and there, he used to meet monks, and he used to learn some things from them. And if any new things, if new scriptures, new subjects, if they know, he used to stay with them, and he used to serve them, and he used to make a study. So one day, again, he came to know that there is a huge congregation of monks nearby. Then he went there, again, I told Paramahamsa Sachidananda and Paramananda Paramahamsa. So he met them, and he discussed and all. He asked to give the sannyas. And he was just 22, between 22 or 23 years of young chap. They all said, you are a young chap, we can't give sannyas so early, you have to stay, you have to practice and all. They didn't give. So almost like 1.5 years over, and in one of the place he was staying and he was doing his spiritual practice. Interestingly, one brahmachari, Naishtika brahmachari, who was from southern India, he and one more monk called Swami Purnananda, who was a Advaitic monk, both of them came into a place where they met Swami Dayananda Saraswati. He was Shuddha Chaitanya, in fact. So by that time, he had met one more monk called Chidashrama Swami. So there he also had a lot of discussions with him. He had learned few things. He pleaded him to give sannyasa diksha monastic vows, but Chidashrama Swami didn't give. Then he approached Swami Purnananda initially. But again, Swami Purnananda was reluctant. But this this brahmachari, who was really instrumental in this, he pleaded Swami Purnananda that he's a great person, he is well learned, well informed, and he is a very serious in his spiritual pursuit and etc. Why should not you give? So he pleaded Swami Purnananda. Finally, Swami Purnananda agreed at the age of 24th. So 24th year or 24th years old, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, as a Shuddha Chaitanya, he got his monastic oath and he has been named as Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Then afterwards, he again he traveled with the Swami Yogananda by name. He learned a lot of yogic text, and from Krishna Shastri, he learns advanced Sanskrit grammar, then called Yogi Jvalananda Puri and Yogi Shivananda Giri. All this with these people, advanced spiritual techniques and advanced yogic techniques, staying in the Mount Abu, he learned. At the age of 30th year, he was well established in the yogic practice. He was well established in the yoga shastras and in the Vedas and the Upanishads, Sanskrit grammar and all. So afterwards, he went to Kumbh Mela in the 1912. At the age of 30, he stayed there. He met again several monks. He discussed. He added some more knowledge, and many monks were also astonished, and they were also impressed by his knowledge. So you can see how he was a seeker of the knowledge. After the knowledge, he had already studied Vedas, he had already studied Upanishads, Vedanga, Sanskrit grammar, etc., etc. But still, wherever if he finds anyone better or anyone good person, he wants to know some good, any new thing he can learn. So like that, he had completed his study, a good amount of study. Then slowly, he started thinking, now what is his mission? What he should do for the country's progress and etc. That is very interesting. Probably I will try to discuss in the next part of the lecture. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu.